Oh my Christ. Jesus Christ, man. If you don't know what Cave Story is, oh my. What? Okay. Alright. Alright. Okay. So, Cave Story is an indie game developed for the computer back in 2004 by some guy. I'm not gonna try and pronounce his name, but he started development into 1999. And eventually in 2004, the game came out. I believe, yeah, it was for free at the time, which now it has multiple ports on Steam for Cave Story Plus, on the 3DS eShop, on the 3DS for Cave Story 3D, for the Switch, for the Wii, and that's it. If you are into Metroidvania style games and like indie game styles, like then I recommend getting this game. I recommend it. The best version I will go over, but they're all pretty good. Since you probably have a computer, I recommend. I guess if you could still get it, the original version, even though it is probably the weakest version. But yeah, I recommend this game. I cannot recommend it enough. It is truly amazing. And let's get into that. So first off, getting into the plot. The plot is one of the most unique that I've ever really seen in the game. It's about this floating island that is floating. And you wake up in this island and you are a soldier. You are a robot soldier who has amnesia. You don't know why, of course. And yeah, there's like you learn more about like you start off knowing nothing, but you from NPCs, from Mamigas, which are basically rabbit things that live in the town of Mamiga Village, you learn things about the history of the world. Who are these people? Why? What's going on? And why? Who you are, kinda. So there is this. So a group of humans, which humans normally don't inhabit the island, came. Now there is a war going on between them over over this mask, like basically, or this helmet, more like. Um, yeah, there's like this helmet thing, and you basically have like a toaster guy named Balrog and this witch person named Misery to basically do your bidding. And oh man, it gets hot. And there's a group of humans who came over. Sue, who was turned into a Mimiga. Some other guy, some other cowardly guy who you meet late in the game, who's been also turned into a Mimiga. And like some other people who you will meet throughout the game. But most notably, the Doctor, who is the main villain of the game, who was just kind of a regular guy until he found the mask, or the helmet, I keep saying mask, the helmet, and he wore it. And he became evil and shit, and then he has this whole plot to basically just kind of take over the island. By doing so, he takes these red flowers and forces the Mimigas to eat them. Why? Because it turns the Mimigas into killing machines. So and they basically die. Like the Mimigas are they're not who they used to be. They're basically turned into killing machines, mindless killing machines. That is it. It is pretty brutal, and to see these rabid Mimigas is pretty brutal, and is like, oh man, oh yeah, okay. So the graphics are not for everyone. They're not, of course, amazing graphics, not even for 2004 standards, but for an indie game, they look pretty good. There is three different styles of the graphics. There's the original graphics, the new graphics, which is basically a polished look, a more polished, newer look, and the 3D graphics from Cave Story 3D. The original graphics are good, are really good in my opinion. They're really pleasant to look at, and they really fit, and it makes the gameplay like really fun, like just looking at it. It's really great. It makes everything stand out. It's just great in my opinion. The new graphics, like I said, are just basically just polished graphics and don't really do a whole lot. And then there's the 3D graphics, which it came out on the 3DS, but it looks like a PS2 game graphics, and they are not good. I don't recommend it. Well, Cave Story 3D is pretty expensive, and I don't really recommend it because you could just get the better version on the eShop. Yeah. There's also the music, which the music is probably one of my favorite, if not my, it's probably one of my favorite soundtracks of all time in a video game. There's three different styles, or there are three different soundtracks. There's the original soundtrack, which is like this chiptune, and it's really good. There's the remastered, which is the same thing, and which is still good, but not as good. And then there's the new one. The new one is not that good in my opinion. I believe that was from, like was originally from Cave Story 3D, but I don't recommend listening to it. Like if you get Cave Story Plus on the PC, you have the option of all three. But I don't really recommend just listening to that. I mean, I recommend listening to the original one definitely, or if you're not a fan of that style, then definitely the remastered, which is still good. And that comes to the gameplay, which is probably the best part in my opinion. Oh boy. It's a platformer shooter that is super good. It's a Metroidvania style game. It has a total of, I'm not sure how many, but you start out with like 3 health, and then you could get a bunch of heart containers, heart capsules, that's what they're called, heart capsules, to increase your health to 50. Yeah, which 50 is good. 50 is pretty good. You start off with the Polar Star, which is just a weak weapon. It's pretty weak, but there's a total of 10 different weapons. You can't have all 10 at once. You can only have 5 at once. Why? Because you mostly trade them in or basically upgrade them. Like for example, the Polar Star, you'll get the Polar Star at the very beginning, and then you'll get the missile one, which is just missiles, and then you'll be able to upgrade that to the super missiles. And then you could get the fireball, which is probably the least utilized out of the main weapons you'll have probably throughout the entire game. But it's still a useful weapons in some cases. The only problem with the weapons that I really see is some of them aren't really going to be used a lot. They're really unique, and they're really fun to use, but some of them aren't really used a whole lot. Yeah. Now you'll get the fireball, but then eventually you could trade out the fireball and the Polar Star for the snake, which the snake is a good weapon. It's really unique and cool to use because it goes through walls and does some other cool shit. But I don't think that is really worth it because you could either later, or not actually later, but you could either trade the Polar Star for the machine gun, which is really powerful. Well, it's not really powerful, but it shoots really fast. And when it's at level 3, you could actually make yourself float, or not really float, but you could basically push yourself off the ground as long as you have enough ammo, which makes traversing the labyrinth and the waterways a lot easier if you're going for the good ending, which I'll explain later. Or you could eventually get the Spur, which is definitely one of, if not the best weapon of the game. It's basically the Polar Star, but you could shoot it, you could charge it to shoot out this massive laser thing, and it goes throughout the entire screen, basically killing everything in its path. And that's really powerful once it's at level 3. And one of the most unique weapon like ideas is like this RPG element. Like, of course, it's a Metroidvania game, so you gotta have damn it, you gotta have RPG elements. And the weapons, they start out at level 1, of course, but they could be upgraded to level 3, which is pretty neat. You know? It is pretty neat. And by doing so, or to do so, you have to get these little yellow triangles that like enemies drop once you kill them. And you could also get missiles to not really upgrade, but to refill your missiles, and of course health. Each heart containing 2 hit points. But not all weapons go by this standard. Most weapons, except for 2, just have it where level 3 is like the most powerful, of course. But then there's the spur, which the spur doesn't actually use the weapon, the thing at all. You get it so late in the game, and it's kind of pointless, and it's kind of like cool to have this new weapon. It's really fun to use. To do so, to get it from level 1 to level 3, you have to charge it down. The longer you charge it, the better it will be. So once it's at level 3, fully charged, it will do a massive damage, you know? And then there's also the Nemesis, which you'll get from the Blade, which I'm not really going to spoil the Blade whole thing, because it's awesome, and the Blade is an awesome weapon. You have to do this little side quest kind of thing, which is pretty cool, and you have to trade out the Blade to get the Nemesis, which the Blade is also a really good weapon. Yeah, and the Nemesis, it has also a neat little thing going on with it too. Level 1 is the most powerful, and level 3 just shoots ducks. Yep, ducks. And it is really, really cool. And that is a really, really powerful weapon also. Probably the second or first best weapon. It will do a lot of damage, but you gotta avoid the yellow triangles. And one hit, like thankfully, like if you get hit once, then it'll basically go back to like 1 or just 2 if you're level 3. So it is utilized well, and each weapon is unique, and each one is pretty fun to use. Though, of course, there's problems. And, of course, getting to the main gameplay and stuff. It's really fun. The platforming is really fun. There's different areas. Like there's this whole big world to explore. And then there's, like, the main areas. There's the Mimiga Village. Like, there's the first cave going into the Mimiga Village. And then there's the Egg Corridor. And then there's the Egg Corridor, like, 2.0 at the end of the game. There's the Bushlands, or I think it's Grasslands, or could be called in another country or something. But the Bushlands, there is the Sand Zone, the Labyrinth, the Waterways, the Plantation, the Last Cave, the Balcony, which isn't really a level or stage, and then in the good ending, there's the Bloodstained Sanctuary. Yeah, there's a lot to do and explore in this massive game. Well, it's not a massive game, but there's a lot of content to do, and this game isn't super long, but it's not super short. It may take you a while if you don't really, if you're not really good at this game, but I've played this game multiple times, and it is fun as hell. There are 3 main endings. One ending is a bad ending where you just leave the island with Kazuma. I don't really think that's like spoiler warning worth. And then there's 2 main endings. There's the good ending and the normal ending. The normal ending, there's some cool things you have to do. You have to talk to the professor, whatever his name was, when he falls down the labyrinth. And then you have to like talk to him, and then you have to talk to him. Yeah. and then do some stuff then, and then you'll get the normal ending. But to get the good ending, it's harder. You don't talk to the professor. You don't, and that result will, like, if you do talk to him, you will get the booster. But playing without the booster or the machine gun is kind of tricky in some places. And the core, which is one of my favorite bosses, which I just need to say, the bosses in this game are fantastic. And the core, which is one of my favorite bosses, can be tedious and hard playing in the good ending. Because the water keeps rising and lowering, and you may possibly die if you drown in the water, you know. Which, I mean, I guess you're just short circuiting because you're a robot. But playing without the booster or machine gun can be pretty hard. But to get the best ending, it doesn't really matter what gun you have. You can get the machine gun, but I got the spur in my main playthrough thing. Yeah. But besides that, the core is one of the best bosses, and all the bosses are really good. Some of them can be killed, and like if you like have the right weapon and if you like are in the right spot and stuff, can be killed pretty easily. But but just normally playing through them is really fun. They're all really fun. The final bosses are really fun, and bosses, it gets pretty hard. It gets really hard at the end. All of them are really fun and really unique in their own way, and so is all the like all the places that you go through. Like you're seeing plantation, like the plantation. There's quite a bit to do, and quite a bit of secrets to find, and there are some secrets to get. Not like a lot of secrets, but there are some cool, neat things, including the like health capsules and like other stuff, other cool stuff. There's only one real negative to the game, and that is a little bit of backtracking in Bushlands. And Bushlands is sort of the beginning of the game. It's the second main area, like if you're not counting Mimiga Village. And to do well, you like it's kind of a little bit like tedious. Like you have to get jellyfish juice, like to kind of get into the little area in Bushlands, little town area kind of thing, whatever you want to call it. But you have to make a bomb to save Kazuma from the shelter thing. You have to make a bomb, and you have to get a gum base, charcoal, and jellyfish juice. The gum base you have to fight like Balrog as a frog, which is pretty cool. And to get the jellyfish juice, you have to defeat the big jellyfish guy. And you have to go back to Santa's house, which is in the beginning of the stage area. And then you have to get the charcoal by doing so. And then you have to go back and get more jellyfish juice. Yeah. And then at the end, once you're finished with Bushlands, when you're leaving it, you don't have to, but you'll probably want to get more jellyfish juice so you could go back and get the bubble weapon, the bubble gun, whatever it's called, which is a pretty cool gun, you know? That's the only real problem I have with the game. Besides that, the game is really, really good. There's no real problems like that. I mean, that's the main game for you. And now this is the spoiler section. Okay? Skip to whatever time is on the front. I'm only going to be talking about the good ending, I guess. So what you do is after you defeat Misery for the last time, and then the Doctor 3 times, the third time as the core, basically, which is a really fun boss fight and is probably the best in the game. You get to either in the normal ending, you just leave the island with everyone, and the island falls, and yeah. But you do save some people, and a lot of people, some people get off the island, and it's a good ending. It's a good ending. But for the true good ending, after that, you go into the little shack thing that's on the balcony, And then you go into the Bloodstained Sanctuary, which is balls hard, man. It is super fucking hard. Okay? So you go, like, you basically are in hell. And it requires perfect, not exactly perfect, but really, really good platforming. And it basically takes all of the skills you've learned and doubles it. You got it. It's super hard. It's basically like the last cave, except so much harder and requires the booster a hell of a lot more. But it's fun though. It is really fun. Now to this day, I have not actually beaten it. Okay, I've not actually completed the game in the good ending. That's because it's hard, man. It's super hard. Okay. But I'm planning to eventually get the Switch version once I get a Switch, and maybe I could do it then because I like the Switch's controls. Now, I mean, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the controls in the game are really good. I mean, I'll talk about that in the non-section as well. But when you're, of course, this is where the controls matter the most, is when you're in the hardest part of the game. And then, yeah, it's really good. Even in the computer version, which I wasn't able, I have the 3DS version and the computer version. And the 3DS is better. It's because it's like an actual controller kind of thing. And I was just using the keyboard, which is fine. It's fine using it all. But it's not like that good. I mean, the controls are fine. It's just kind of hard to use on a keyboard, you know? So I recommend if you're playing the Switch or if you're playing the computer version, I do recommend it. Yeah. So, yeah, that is pretty much the game. It is a great game. That is the game, but that's not all of the content, you know? That's not all of the content. There's also a curly mode, which doesn't change a whole lot, but it just kind of. What it does. It just. Sorry. What it does is it's just the game, but you play as Curly. That's really it. There's and quote is swapped with Curly, and then yeah. And by the way, his name's Quote. I don't know if that's really a spoiler or anything, but you learn that in the end of the game, in the good ending. But in the end, you get a little bit of dialogue and stuff, and there's also some challenges. Now I have not actually unlocked the Wind Fortress and whatever else there is, but there's the Nemesis challenge, which is actually pretty hard though. Though the Nemesis challenge is cool, the setting's pretty cool, which is kind of like the underside of the island, which is a cool setting. But the platforming is not that great. There's a review on it. You could probably like find a review talk about it. But I mean, mostly the platforming is not really that good in the game in the Nemesis challenge, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of hard. It's kind of really hard. And then there's the machine gun challenge, which is far too easy. It's in like this egg corridor kind of place, and it's pretty easy, man. You know, I mean, it's just kind of easy. It's really easy. That's really it. I can't really comment on the Wind Fortress, but for what I've seen and for what I've heard, it is really fun. It's really good. And the other challenges in the game are really good too. And with that, that is my final thoughts on the game. It is amazing. It's in my opinion, one of the best games of all time. It's probably, to be more specific, it's probably my fourth favorite game of all time, if not higher. And it is fun as hell. The gameplay is great and addictive. The music is atmospheric and fits the mood perfectly. The graphics, well, not for everyone, and maybe a little cliche for an indie game, they're still great, and I recommend playing them in the new style of graphics, which is even better. Everything is good about it. So with all of that said, I give it a score of 9.9. It is honestly one of the best games of all time. Everything about it is great except for a few parts. It's just super good, okay? You need to go play it, and yeah, it's the great. Okay? Alright, okay. It is amazing, okay?